Now I'm reviewing The Mitchells versus the Machines. The story's about this family who fights robots. That's it. No. It's actually a pretty cool story. It's about this daughter who wants to make films and her dad doesn't really get her, but she doesn't really get her dad either. He's like really old school and doesn't understand technology at all. And her mom and brother and her all go on like a cross-country road trip, but while that's going on, this phone company is starting an update that's adding a new phone that is just a robot. And then as soon as he turns it on for his test display, they all turn evil and try to take over the world. Well, essentially they do take over the world, actually, except for this one family, the Mitchells. And I'm also a Mitchell, so that made me proud. Not really. It was a very well-written story, and it was well told and very funny. And it was, like, kind of surprising in its own way, just because it's a movie I've never heard of. It was like a straight-to-Netflix movie, more or less. And my hopes were not high, but it turned into something really great. And, like, it had this quality that I've only seen in a few other movies, where everything that was set up in the first half of the film was paid off in the second half of the film. And, like, I was thinking about it earlier, and the only other movie I could think of that does that is Shaun of the Dead. I know there's more. That's just the only one that really sprung to my mind. You know, maybe it wasn't a straight to Netflix. I think I just misremembering. It was a very fun film all the way through, and that also kind of surprised me, I guess. It was a good story about family and about how families don't always get along, I guess, and like really how all the characters grew, which I thought was really fun. Danny McBride does the voice of the dad. I thought he did a really good job. But like, I didn't recognize his voice at first, just because he's doing a part that's really different for him. Oh, it did this motif that I almost forgot about, that like, because it's done through the eyes of a YouTube filmmaker, like she does a lot of background stuff and things, and like, but it happens in real time throughout the movie. I kind of saw it as like, that's just how she sees the world in a way, like through the eyes of a YouTube filmmaker who has to like see things through filters and things like that. But it became a very good like running theme in the movie that was pretty original and unique, and I liked it. The only thing I could really think of is like kind of a minus, and wasn't really a minus, but at first I thought this had like maybe a anti-technology message. It was just kind of strange, really. Just because like the robots are rising up, and then the phone, like the guy's old phone turns out to be the villain. I was just like, fear technology. Oh, and its name was Pal, which was an obvious reference to HAL from 2001. HAL 9000. And that kind of, because it's only the third part that HAL's in the 2001 movie, and I think people kind of forget that just because the third part's like the only part anyone ever remembers about that movie, I think. It's the one with David Bowman and HAL's not in the other parts of the movie, or David Bowman. Well, he's in the last part too, but again, people forget that. But it just kind of made me start thinking, like, did they misconstrue that part of 2001 as to be like some kind of anti-technology message? And I started thinking, wait, was that part of an anti-technology message? I mean, Kubrick movies are always left in the air, so it's kind of, you can kind of interpret them how you want. But yeah, I think I was just misremembering. It was like, I thought it was more about how this peace-loving computer is murdered by these awful men. But really, it wasn't Hal's fault. It was human error. I'm talking about Hal too much for some reason. Anyway, in lieu of me ranting about 2001 for a second there, I think I'll just keep this one brief and rate this 10 out of 10. It's like good enough that I don't really have anything else to say about it, if that makes sense, just because I don't really have complaints. And it was a fun story the whole way through, and it had a lot of depth of character and character growth, and it was like a fun road movie with evil robots, and hilarious evil robots, actually. And the jokes were really good. And that's something that's really hard. I think it's kind of hard to pull off in a movie like this, to do something like that, like making Armageddon fun. I guess Shaun of the Dead, like I said, and really my only comparison was that it does really well with the set up and payoff. Actually, this movie and that movie have a lot of similarities. Now that I'm thinking about it, just because they're both about like Armageddon and what in the aftermath of that, but under the guise of a comedy. But yeah, I highly recommend this movie, and I give it a 10 out of 10. I guess that's it. Like and subscribe, and I'll be here tomorrow reviewing something else, probably.